What is your experience with non-duality? Have you been involved? What's your name, please?
My name is Gregory.
Gregory. Have you been involved with non-duality for some time?
My first experience was May 19th at 11 p.m. and that was a year ago.
Yeah.
I was watching a video and Papaji was teaching.
Yes.
And he was walking someone through thought.
Right.
And I was walking with them. When we reached, if you want to call it a destination,
Yeah.
I went to bed, and when I woke up, I noticed that I didn't wake up with the excess baggage that I'd normally be waking up with. So I said, well, if I truly went through the process that Papaji, if anybody doesn't know who Papaji was, he was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi.
Right.
So I just watched myself all day. And I didn't notice any kind of turbulence going on that normally goes on. I thought, before I tell my lady partner, let's go another day. You like my story? So another day, there was no turbulence. And she follows a different path. And I said, Carrie, I've reached the other shore. It's over. And she goes, okay, I'll be watching you. So on one hand, I felt a little bit challenged. On the other hand, I felt, okay, sure. This went on for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, even though that I would get aggressive mental suggestions, which are considered negative, or trying to tell you something about yourself or something, they would just come and pass. And I, with no effort, I didn't have to push them. They would just go by me. So I started writing poetry with my experience. And it lasted for 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, things resumed as they were. So I wrote to David Godman. If you don't know David Godman, he's probably the foremost writer of Ramana's teachings presently. And I says, this is what happened. And he said exactly what I thought. My work isn't done yet. So it's just a glimpse.
Right.
Since then, there's 2 other situations that occurred like that, but it didn't last 2 weeks. It would last a day. Mm-hmm. That's my experience.
Right. Okay. Very good. Yes, yes. And the teacher that wrote to you that the process was not finished, he was right. See, you can have an awakening, but then the awakening makes you realize what you are really and what you are not. See, you are that observation that was watching the mind-body organism function. Remember, you said at the beginning, I was watching myself. No, you were watching the mind-body organism. You are the awareness, right? So you were the observing, and the mind-body organism was operating as an instrument for the divine, for consciousness. So that is the real situation. Now, the realization came, I am awareness, and I am watching the mind-body organism. So I am not the mind-body organism. But once that is clear, once you have seen through the false self, the mind-body organism, which is not what you are, once that happens, still there is work to do. And people think, oh, I woke up, right? And
that's exactly what I thought.
Right, and there's no more work to do, but there is work to do. The problem is that the work that happens after awakening changes, is different. It's not the same work that you were doing before. You need to change the strategy. Because the old tricks, that we were working to some degree only to maintain you in positive thinking and so on, they don't work anymore. They don't work well. So you need to change the whole strategy after awakening. Because the little self that you imagine to be, through awakening you see that it is not you, and it's not even a real self. It's just a mental construction. So it does not have the power to change itself. The ego cannot change itself because it's a dead thing. It's not an alive being. It is a programming, it's like a robot. Your life, actual life, is awareness. So when you realize that, you say, well, who's going to continue doing the job here, right? Because there is no little self, so I cannot do it. I, as the little self, I, as the me that I thought I was, I cannot do it. But there is something in here that is different. It's the divine itself, and that can do it, right? So in the process that happens after awakening, we engage in a different type of work, which is called surrender.
Surrender.
Surrender to the divine. Is the ego is a fictitious being. The ego is a fictitious being, but the ego has a relative existence, and in the play of the universe has the power. It has given a power that is called free will to obstruct its evolution or to move forward. So the job of the ego is to consent to be chipped off, meaning that every time something happens, an emotional reaction happens, you need to after that introspect and follow a certain process that I'm going to mention today, so that you let go of that chunk of the ego that still is holding there. So the job after awakening is ego reduction, is to reduce and reduce and reduce and reduce the ego. Once the ego has been reduced enough, then the type of experiences that you had may become more constant. Make sense?
Absolutely.
This process after awakening is called embodiment.
Process
yes,
is embodiment, so it's continual.
It's continual, right. This process after awakening, awakening is an event in time. It just happens, in this case for 2 weeks, boom, you realize your true nature. Oh, I'm awareness. I never was, what's your name, sorry again? Gregory. I never was Gregory. Gregory is a name, right?
That's correct.
To the mind-body organism. You already realize that. Now, the process that comes afterwards, if the awakening was properly integrated, right? So that it was understood properly, meaning that you understood that you are awareness, that you are not the little self. Then after that comes a process called embodiment. Embodiment of what? Embodiment of the awakening. You want to embody the awakening into the mind-body organism, which is expressing itself through 3 fundamental things: thoughts, feelings, and actions. So you want your true nature as awareness or the divine to be reflected, or you want to reflect in thought, feeling, and action your true nature. Makes sense?
Yes, sir.
So your true nature, so you want to embody the awakening. The information that was given to you in awakening, the insight that was given to you during the awakening. What was the insight? The insight was, I am not the mind-body organism. I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. I am not my body. These are things that I, as consciousness, am using to function through. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So now, I don't know to what degree your awakening has been integrated, but it's no more complex than what I said. The integration of the awakening means that it has to be turned, this insight of great caliber has to be turned into a clear understanding, and you need to hold to that understanding. You don't want it to go. The understanding is, I am awareness. undifferentiated awareness or undifferentiated consciousness.
And that's what you're going to present to us, how to
Well,
keep it?
the class today, the meeting today that I announced was about the path of understanding, right? How to pursue the final liberation, which comes after awakening, after you have really embodied, right, the awakening. So, how to pursue that through the path of understanding. Now, what I'm talking to you at this moment, is understanding, meaning you had the experience, now the experience has to be understood properly. The proper understanding of the experience needs to happen, because otherwise it will be no more than an experience that you can have with a mushroom. You can have that experience with a mushroom. And then coming back out of the experience and say, well, I had a great experience with the mushroom. Me, had the great experience with the mushroom. What really happened during the experience with the mushroom or during your experience is the me was not there. Was there, but it was subdued. Now, the one that was on the throne was observation or awareness, right? So it was, the ego was pulled down from the throne, dethroned during the experience, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the work after awakening is a work that is much easier, is less painful. Like the self-development part is painful, right? This little me, this ego is slaying the dragons left and right and trying to make it and meditating long and doing all this effort because I need to progress spiritually. That's self-development. And the ego is driving is at the will. And spirituality is about letting go of the ego, removing it from the will. So you, by doing this, by pursuing the spiritual path with this attitude that I am slaying the dragons and I am at the will, moving forward in the spiritual path, we are reinforcing the ego. We're creating a different type of ego, yes, more subtle. It's called a spiritual ego, right? We're moving from the materialistic ego to the spiritual ego. But still, it can be humongous and it can be nasty anyway, right? It can be nasty despite that we are having spiritual thoughts now. I am a spiritual being, I am a soul, I am this, I am that. Yeah, a being of light. These are identifications. You are nothing of that. You are awareness. You are the divine itself. And then people say, oh, well, but what about all that thing about the soul and the astral worlds and so on? It's real at that level because the astral body, is a very sophisticated supercomputer, and awareness is looking through it. Again, same thing that here, awareness is looking through it, through the human body. So, but we create the identification. We go to the astral and we say, oh, I am a soul now. So, I am this. That's an identification, right? No identification is I am, or I am awareness, undifferentiated awareness. So let's have a little meditation, nothing too long, 15 minutes, and then we go into the subject of understanding, how to use understanding properly, to move forward fast. You can move very fast in the process of embodying the awakening. The awakening needs to happen. You need to have, whether it is through a spiritual experience like you had or any other way, but the awakening, I recommend pursue awakening first, because once the awakening happens, everything is easier. And the awakening is the realization that you are not the being that you thought you are, that you are a formless awareness, and that is a realization that is easy to get. It's not difficult. In fact, I designed a 3-hour awakening protocol that I have applied many times with my students. About 80 to 90% they wake up during the 3 hours. It's not difficult to get the awakening. What is difficult is to attain liberation, right? And I would say not difficult after awakening, because the process after awakening is a process of surrender. And it's easy to surrender once you have realized that you are not the mind-body organism, you are not the ego, you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings. In India they say neti, 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 neti. I am not this, not that, not that, not that. No. What I am? The no thing, the clear seeing, the observation of the whole story. The formless consciousness, the formless awareness. So let's have a meditation.